Hello, everyone. Welcome to June's Book Club. We are here today for our live author talk with Kori Hahn, author of Rituals of the Soul, using the 8 ancient principles of yoga to create a modern and meaningful life. So, Kori, thank you so much for being here. I know that you are in Bali and it's about 11 p.m. there. So, thank you
Yeah.
so much for staying up for us.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, I think Kori, I want to dive in with my first question of just like, how did this book come to be? It's a question I get asked a lot about my book. A lot of people want to write a book and they just don't know where to start with it. So how did you go from in here to here with your book?
Well, I don't feel that I was a writer before. I'd never considered myself a writer, actually. I just started running retreats after a big life change, like leaving Alaska. I lived there for a while. And so I started running retreats when I kind of moved to Southeast Asia and started trying to live a different life. And so I started doing my own copy and writing on my website and mainly just writing on Instagram, to be honest, as silly as that sounds, but just
Mm-mm.
writing and trying to, help people get to know me so that I could sell my retreats. And I found that I really fell in love with the writing part of it. And that did really well. I mean, my retreats did well, but it was because people were able to connect with my words. And so I
Yeah.
suddenly found that that might be my medium as an artist. And at the time I married an artist. And so he was just very much like, this is your thing. Didn't you know? And I was like, I didn't know. But I got pregnant and I went to a yoga nidra conference or, intensive in Australia. And so I sat there for 5 days, really deeply like getting relaxed as yoga nidra does and listening to your intuition and going deep into the subconscious. And I kept getting this message that was like, write a book, write a book. But at the time I didn't really even know what or how or, what I was going to do. So I just started kind of writing um, about yoga and my perception of what the 8 steps of yoga or the 8 principles actually mean. And it was very much became an encyclopedia that no one would have ever wanted anything to do with. Like, we don't want to touch that. I mean, I had no idea about a book proposal or any of the proper steps of how to write. I had never been trained or even read anything. I just was like, I'm going to write. So I think I came at it completely blind, and there are better ways to do it. But that was really helpful for this book and for me because I created, or as I worked through the encyclopedia, and then I realized it's like 100,000 pages, that I needed to simplify it down. And then I had this vision the whole time that I wanted it to be as simple as a Japanese temple. And I wanted it to be like white. And even on the front cover, I wanted it to be like all white with tiny black words. Of course, like, the publisher does what they want. But in my head, it was like simplify, simplify, simplify was the message. So slowly over time, I simplified it and realized my own understanding of yoga so much, as I don't know how studied, the audience or the listeners are in yoga, but there is a form of yoga called jnana, and it's, the scholarly path. And so this was finally my time to dive into the scholarly path, read all the books, and really study. And so it just kind of morphed over time into what it was. And then there were a lot of defeats. Like, I thought I was just kind of channeling something. So I thought it was going to be a very easy process. But once I put all this time and energy into it, and kept writing and kept simplifying and realizing like, wow, I'm really coming up with my understanding of these 8 steps. And I've just been stuck in the first 2 steps for so long. And so it slowly just evolved. It was completely a creation from a ping in my head. And I hired an editor a few times, and then I ended up getting it, by the grace of God, really got an agent and then got a publisher. And then they really helped beautify the whole thing. And actually, I just assumed no one would want to really hear my story. Like, who am I? And so it was when I took it to them that they were like, you're actually really interesting. You should really put your story in here. So even all the personal part, which is what so many people actually tell me they like about it, was kind of the last minute add-ins to the whole thing. So yeah, it was really just a dream that I had no idea how to manifest.
But you did.
I still can't believe it. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I think you talk about, you weren't going to put your personal story into it. And I think that's what makes each of us so unique, right? Like we
Mm.
all bring a unique perspective to whatever it is we're talking about. And I talk a lot about imposter syndrome and how we feel like an imposter. And it's like, you already have everything you need to know. And there's somebody out there that needs to hear what you have to say specifically from you. Right. And so I
Yeah.
think, it's the right person's going to pick up the book and connect and,
Yeah.
get a lot of meaning from it.
And then encyclopedias are all written. So now it's time, like if you want to read an encyclopedia, they're there. The guidebooks are there.
Mhm.
We don't need another guidebook. It's
Right.
2022 or whatever. And so I think that you're absolutely right. And, I believe that all of us are on a journey of self-worth. And I think that imposter syndrome is just always signaling us to come back to that mission of reconnecting with our self-worth. But imposter syndrome is something I continue time and time and time again to kind of battle, to
Yeah.
just be like, I see you there, but I'm not listening.
Yeah. And I think it's everywhere. It's in any profession, right? But like,
Yeah.
I definitely see it in the yoga world. Like, I need to take one more training before I can teach this. Well,
Yeah.
do you? But do you? Like
Yeah.
you probably already have all that information, or whatever it is. That's just one example.
Yeah.
But it's like we have all that self-doubt, right? Like, I'm not good enough.
And everything.
Why would they come to me when they can go to Kori, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we all have
Oh,
that.
yeah. We all do in every realm of our existence. Because even now, like
Mhm.
I'm starting to date after divorce, and oh man, is it there
Yep.
too? Or it's in
Yep.
everything. And even after it came out, I literally thought I'd be like popping champagne. And it was like, I took like 5 bubble baths a day. I was so overwhelmed with the pressure of suddenly people like, who did I think I was? And it didn't dawn on me that that would actually be the hardest part of the journey, was
Yeah.
putting it out there and letting people read it. And I think that's what exactly came up for me, was a big dose of self-rejection and imposter
No.
syndrome.
Yeah. Well, Kori, so in the book, you state that your book will teach readers how to use yoga to connect with and start acting on their intuition. Can you tell us a little more about that? Because I think that's
Yeah.
exactly what you did. You acted on your own intuition.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that is kind of what it ended up being? Is just, and that's why your personal story is so important, isn't it, really? And then that's why they wanted me to add my story to the book too. But I just believe that, the yogis teach us that we have different layers of our consciousness, and that oftentimes we start yoga. I started yoga as an Ashtangi, so it was very physical and breath, body. And that's why, when I started writing the book, I realized like I've been stuck in these 2 layers, in the most gross or the most tangible part of myself. But when I started going deeper and deeper and listening to my emotions and listening to my feelings, I started realizing the importance of intuition, and how it's really instilled to this day. I mean, my overthinking mind blocks me from my intuition all the time, but that's why it's not about reading and knowing the scholarly approach to it, but doing the practices and embodying it.
Mhm.
But I do think that, intuition are the whispers of our God. They are the voice from within. What the yogis would say is, Anandamaya Kosha, that deep golden nectar, the pearl of our oyster is there inside of us. And we're never going to really understand our purpose or the meaning until we tap into that. And that is going to tell us, this is why you're here. It's not to get married and have kids and have 2 cars and a house. It's like to to fight your imposter syndrome, to understand that you're worthy, to realize you're a sacred being. Like there's all these things, to stop thinking that money is going to give you worth, because it doesn't, like, so every step of the way, your intuition is kind of like your GPS system, just always keeping you going in that North Star.
Yeah. And I think, we can all relate to when we don't trust that intuition, when there's that little, those little voices telling you, no, and we're like, oh, it's okay. And then inevitably, it shows itself that our intuition was right and we should have listened to it. And, I think that just reaffirms that we need to listen to that intuition. And mine is rarely wrong. And yet I still doubt it sometimes, right?
Because the mind is so loud and the mind is so powerful. But they've done studies too, where they gave people 10 minutes to buy a car in 10 days. And most of the time, the people that had 10 minutes to buy a car were happier for longer with their purchase than the people who had 10 days to research every single type of car. They would just be like, this is it. And then they were just cool with it, and I just think that it's because we're not living from the mind when that happens. It's just like the pings, and God, life is so much more enjoyable too when we do that. It's so much better.
Right?
Yes.
When we don't overthink it.
Oh my God.
So your book empowers readers to create their own personalized set of rituals. Why is this so important, Kori?
Because we're all different. And we're always going to have a different step or a different thing we're dealing with. We have different blockages. We have different astrology signs and different imprints. The moment we were born, we were made all very differently. And I think that after like 25 years, and I was a strict Ashtangi. I was not I was really aspired to get my legs behind my head while doing a cartwheel. It was like, even one of my neighbors in Alaska used to come over and be like, that's not healthy. I don't know what you're doing, but it's not healthy. And so I think I realized too, and that's funny that this all started when I got pregnant, because that wasn't really my path for so long, when I had all the time in the world and all the money in the world and I didn't have a kid, but as soon as I had a baby, suddenly I was like, I don't have time for any of this. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. And then I started surfing. It was just like, okay, the yoga practice just went to the wayside, and I realized, but I needed it. So I started just baby stepping. And so I was like, if I meditate every day for even 20 minutes, I don't have to go to a meditation intensive every year like I thought I did. I don't have to do an hour and a half of working to get my leg behind my head. It's just do what you need for you and make it as easy and simple as you can. And even someone with anxiety, if you spend 5 minutes every morning when you wake up saying, I am calm, breathing, reminding yourself, I'm okay, I am calm, you can start retraining your brain with those small 5 minutes to neuroplasticity wise change your anxiety. And so it's taking your problems and finding a solution. It's not like, I'm going to be the spiritual enlightened female version of the Dalai Lama. It's like, let's just maybe back step it up a little bit. But I just think that still just having little steps is the key to consistency, and consistency is definitely the key to moving the needle.
And I did a 1-minute yoga challenge this past winter, where I did a 5-day challenge to just do yoga for 1 minute a day, and each day had a theme. So one day was asana, one day was breath work, one day was meditation. Because people don't fully understand that yoga is so much more than the asana, the pose, right? Like getting your leg behind your head. By the way, did you ever get there?
It gets close, but nothing's pretty about it, and now I don't think it's going to get anywhere close. This was after 10 years, but I don't do any asana almost ever anymore. If my hips hurt, I'll go into pigeon. I'll put a block behind my back to open my heart if I feel like I'm struggling to love or be open or be compassionate. But I am not into the asana. And to be honest, nowadays, I think this is after many years of working with the physical and working with the breath and working with the mind. But lately, the past 2 months being back in Bali, there's so many energy workers here. And I've been loving doing just these subtle energy practices. And I feel it's just this incredible new way of doing yoga that I've never done before. And I think that's really important too, because I was so bored with my asana practice. I'm still just like, oh, I have to go to a class. I mean, this is coming from someone who's writing yoga books. You know what I mean? Like but if you can be inspired and you feel that it's going to make a difference for you, and then that's what's important. If you feel confident it's going to work. I mean, the asana always makes you feel better. I'm not trying to deter anyone from doing it. It really does always kind of put you back in your body and not in your mind and more in your breath. And, these are all good things. But yeah, it's just, we can get stuck in that. We can get stuck thinking it has to be an hour. We can get stuck thinking we have to do Vipassana for 1 hour every day versus 10 minutes of, and now with Insight Timer, it's just like, or other apps like that, Headspace, even someone I met the other day was like, I do my 15 minutes on Headspace. I love Andy. And I was like, awesome. Like, keep it up. Eventually you might want to do more. Eventually you might find that it's working for you and you're going to up it, or you're going to change it, or you're going to, but the ritual, that consistency, and it doesn't matter how long, I think is the key to the practice. But I don't know where that gets lost along the lines. I guess maybe it's hard to market it.
Right. And, and I find it interesting too, for me, like when I have a class coming up that I have to teach, there's times when I'm just like, oh, I just don't want to teach today. Like I'm overwhelmed or I'm burnt out or, whatever it is. And then I realize that's the class I needed to teach that day, because I needed the asana in my body that day. And I always feel so good after those classes. And, I always find it so interesting to me how I go into it like, oh, I don't want to do it today, but I have to. And then as soon as we start those first couple of minutes of grounding and just centering, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm here for this. So, and I think the same can be said as a student too, like when you don't feel like going to class, but then you bring yourself to go to class and you're glad you did.
Well, that discipline, and that's what the Ashtanga gave me for sure, is a discipline into showing up. And that's where I learned the consistency. So I think you're right. Like, yeah, I don't want to meditate every day. Then most of the time I don't want to show up at all, but I do know that the discipline and the consistency are all like, two of the same. And so exactly, like I say, I don't do asana, but I do something. And I do try to show up for something for myself. That's what I call my yoga practice now, is showing up for myself. That might be sitting on my computer and studying astrology. It might be a Kundalini activation. It might be breath work. It might be a yin yoga class. It might be 1 minute challenge, so, but keep showing up.
Yeah, exactly. So Kori, in your book, you write about the importance of feeling our feelings. Why is this important, and how do you teach someone to feel?
Oh, this is funny because I just taught this morning on a workshop, and it's cancer season right now. So, I mean, I don't know when everybody will see this. So it's such a time to talk about feelings because we are all probably feeling them. But, oftentimes we feel the physical pain in our body, and you can say, I have pain in my hip. And you might want it to go away, and that's okay. And then you have the mind, and the mind is anxious. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the thing is. Am I being ghosted? Am I going to get that job? Should I do this? And we hear it. And what we're working on with asana is moving and being in the body and accepting. The meditation is also listening to the mind and accepting. And I think somewhere along the lines in society, we failed to take feeling and emotions as they necessary, but don't label them with negative or positive, but then just let them be, because emotions are very much connected to like a river. They're like a river, and they even, science says that it might last for 90 seconds usually, but if our mind becomes in a cycle with those emotions, then it will continue to cycle. So if we can just be aware of them without reacting, I'm feeling angry. And one thing I did say in my workshop this morning, which I really still resonates, I think, is instead of saying I am angry, start really saying I feel angry right now. And I feel, because they're
Yes.
constantly moving, and I think that we think we are that, but we are not that. And our feelings are also not our intuition. So it's just another deeper layer that we want to move into. And so even therapy, I would consider as a yoga practice, talking about your
Yeah.
feelings. Julia Cameron, I believe, is who wrote The Artist Way, right? And it's a famous book. I can't remember. Julia Cameron, I feel like that's the cook. But anyways, she wrote, the book is definitely called The Artist Way, but she talks about the morning pages. And that's one thing I feel like that's really good homework when you are new to your feelings, or if you don't have a lot of water in your astrology chart, or you're just someone who's kind of avoidant of your feelings, is to write free flow.
I'm a
Especially for
Pisces.
us writers. Oh my God,
I'm
you
all
can write all
water.
day. But just to write for 3 minutes, write for 2 pages, whatever it is, and every day. And you can, when I was in Alaska, I had a practice of burning it, just letting it go. But that like moves it out. Those are your 90 seconds to kind of let them all flow through, to observe them, to accept them, and to move them. And then the other thing with feelings just is also to know that if you feel like it's a negative feeling, it's probably your intuition still kind of redirecting you to what you truly want. So if you're feeling anxious because of something and you don't like it and it feels negative, then just you can create. And that's where those I am sankalpas that we use are so powerful, the opposite feeling. So I am calm. And that's when I like to say I am as an intention.
Yes.
And I feel as what my emotion is in this moment. I'm finding that really profound actually lately.
It's really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, talking about writing it down, and so my book is about my brain injury experience. And so it started as just blog posts, like just for me, like I was just writing it to get it out of my head. It was very, very, very therapeutic. And I had no idea it would turn into something therapeutic for other people as well. But writing gets it out of your head, I think.
Yeah.
You get it out of your head and onto paper, or, your fingertips.
Self-expression. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's where I think journaling can be such a powerful release, right? And it doesn't even have to be
Absolutely.
full sentences or coherence, right? Like it can just be free writing, whatever words are coming to your head, and just getting them onto paper.
Yeah, absolutely. A form of meditation for people. Or, if you're listening to your mind with meditation, why can't you just write it? And if you're not judging what you're writing, then it
Yeah.
would work the same way. And I do think that until I found my voice as a writer, I felt quite stuck in myself, and I felt very stuck in my emotions. So this has been one of the greatest gifts, is to learn how to self-express and become a writer. These 5 years ago, when I first had this idea to write a book, little did I know that, being in touch with this output, like you said, and releasing and expressing would be so healing. And for me also, very cathartic process.
Yeah. So you write about the importance of being aware of our blockages. Why is this so important?
Because they're blocking us. And I think that's why I've been into the subtle energy work lately, is because it seems to really go in and kind of shake up. This is getting hippy dippy, and I promise you, like, I swear I rarely wear feather earrings or anything. I'm really a down to earth yogi, I feel like, and quite not hippie in my ways, but we can kind of start to see why we're not doing what we want to do, we can work through that. And so when your intuition often says something like, you should write a book, like usually there's a blockage that comes right after it, like, but you don't even know how to write, or how are you going to get published, or like, you don't even have a platform, or I should leave my husband, but it's like, but I don't have money, but I'm not sure about that. There's so many, I want to leave my job, but that's not secure. I mean, that's your blockage, whatever is holding you back. And this is in the scripts. I didn't make this part up. Like, these are old Sanskrit words that are like, things like procrastination, things like insecurity and avoidance. Like, these are things that all of us are dealing with that hold us back. They're just the gates we have to open in order to keep walking. Because hearing your intuition, many people hear their intuition, but I think these blockages stop many people from acting on them. And so just to know them is a powerful thing. I feel like, even for me, like, I can see this and say, this is just anxiety. This is my mind self-sabotaging me. Mm-hmm. So even imposter syndrome, you just can see it for what it is and not let it stop you anymore. And I'm still going to probably forever feel like an imposter. Maybe one day I won't. But the difference between me and someone else, maybe with imposter syndrome, is I'm not going to stop walking anymore. And that's where the blockage is. When you know it, when you see it, when you can move through them, then you can keep going towards what you truly want. And that's the whole journey. I mean, we weren't put here on earth just to, like, I don't know, like, not work hard to create something. Like, we were put here to do this. And those blockages are essentially why we have the dream, is because our soul is like, please get rid of that blockage. And it's like, if I give her this dream, she's going to have to deal with those blockages. So like, they come in this, like two sides of a knife, or whatever that saying is. Like, we all have them, but so many of us think that that's supposed to be the end of the road, but I don't think it is.
Yeah. So what is it? What's the most important thing that you hope a reader will take away from your book?
Gosh, anything. There's so much in there. I just hope that they find the parts that they need at that part in their life. And, one of the greatest blessings for me, it's hard to pick it, I hope they resonate with it and find it usable. But as I read and re-edited 7 million gazillion times, every time another chapter spoke to me. And I find, and even my publisher was just like, I think I'm stuck in this chapter. I'm stuck in the unblocking chapter. I'm stuck in the mind chapter. And I think we move. That's what I talk about in the book, is these 8 steps aren't a ladder. It's a cycle, and we can constantly cycle through them. We have moments of samadhi. We ride the bike. We get the book out. I'm not like done because I wrote a book. I'm still like not enlightened. It's like, I'm going to still have to move through each of these steps, hearing my intuition. Now what? So then I have to listen to my intuition again. Then when it gives me a dream, I'm gonna have to block it again. You could even use dating, or I had divorce, so I could use this book for a completely different reason now. And I just think that to find your little piece of nugget that speaks to you and make your rituals.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
So, Kori, if anyone watching wants to connect with you, they can find you on Instagram. It's Kori.Hahn. And what are some other ways they can connect with you?
I do have meditations on Insight Timer and a little bit on YouTube that you can find. Lots of podcasts at this point. I have a podcast called The Soul Sessions, and everything is on my website. And my business is, the website name is Santosha Society, and that's SANTOSHA Society. And Santosha means contentment in Sanskrit. So it's a contentment society is what it stands for. But you can probably find it with my name pretty easy as well. Just Google.
Google. Well, Kori, thank you so much for being here today and talking about your book, Rituals of the Soul. It has been so lovely to chat with you. And I
Yes,
just want
thank
to
you.
take a minute to let everyone know our July book is Bellies to the Sky, a bedtime breathwork book by Colleen Canning. And it's a little different. It's technically a children's book, but I think adults can get a lot out of this as well. It's a beautifully illustrated book about using your breath. And so I'm really excited to, chat with Colleen um, in July for our live author talk. But Kori, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for staying up late to be with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Have a
Thank
good
you
day,
so
Amy.
much. Thank you. Thanks for chatting. And thank you,
Yeah.
everyone. We'll see you in July.